My wife returned from her business trip to Rome looking like she'd discovered fire. Lena Mirell-Harren floated through our front door at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, her skin bronzed to perfection, her dark hair catching the hallway light like she was starring in some Italian romance film. The airport tags still dangled from her designer luggage, Roma Fiumicino in bold black letters. I sat at our kitchen island, nursing a whiskey and pretending to read maritime engineering reports. The ice had long since melted. I'd been waiting 3 hours, but who was counting? "Miles," she breathed, dropping her bags with theatrical flair. "God, I missed you." She moved toward me with this new confidence, this liquid grace I'd never seen in our 8 years of marriage. Her fingers found my face, traced my jaw like she was memorizing it. "I found myself over there," she whispered, her eyes bright with secrets. "I finally understand what it means to feel alive, really, truly alive." I nodded, setting down my glass with deliberate care. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Rome has that effect on people." "It wasn't just Rome." She was glowing, practically vibrating with this newfound energy. It was everything. The conference, the people I met, the conversations that went until dawn. I feel like I've been sleepwalking for years, and now I'm finally awake. The biotech conference, was that inspiring? You have no idea. She spun around our kitchen like a teenager, arms outstretched. I networked with industry leaders, attended private dinners, stayed up all night discussing breakthrough treatments. There was this pharmaceutical executive, Damon Vossel, who opened my eyes to possibilities I never imagined. Damon Vossel. I'd been hearing that name for months, scattered through her phone conversations and casual mentions. Always with a little too much enthusiasm, a little too much detail about his insights and charm. "Sounds transformative," I said, reaching into the desk drawer beside me. "I'm glad you had such an enriching experience." "Miles, I want us to travel more. I want us to live more. I've been thinking about our future, about what we really want from life." She was pacing now, gesticulating with Italian-inspired passion. "We've been so comfortable, so predictable. Don't you want more than this?" I pulled out a cream-colored envelope, thick with contents, and slid it across the granite countertop. "Actually, I've been thinking about our future, too." Lena's eyes fixed on the envelope. Her newfound radiance flickered for just a moment. "What's that?" "Open it." She approached slowly, her confidence wavering. The envelope was sealed, but not glued. I'd wanted to make this easy for her. Her manicured fingers, still perfect despite international travel, lifted the flap. The first photograph slipped out face up, a blonde woman in a hotel robe, laughing at something off camera. The Westin Excelsior Roma logo was clearly visible on the bathroom amenities in the background. "I don't understand," Lena said, but her voice had lost its musical quality. "Keep looking." The second photo showed the same blonde woman with a man I recognized from Lena's LinkedIn connections. Damon Vossel, pharmaceutical executive, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit draped over a chair. They were sharing champagne on what appeared to be a hotel balcony. The third photo was time-stamped Tuesday, March 15th, 10:47 p.m. A redhead this time, considerably younger, wearing what looked like conference credentials around her neck, and nothing else. "Miles, what is this?" "Wednesday, March 16th, I said, watching her face as she found the next image. Different woman, same hotel room. Notice the distinctive wallpaper pattern? The Excelsior has very recognizable decor. Photo 5 featured twins. Actual twins, both brunette, both laughing at something Damon was apparently saying from behind the camera. Thursday, March 17th, according to the metadata. "Where did you get these?" "Your friend Damon is quite the photographer. Very thorough documentation of his business trips. He tags locations on social media, books rooms on corporate accounts, even uploads photos to cloud storage with automatic timestamps." I took a sip of my watered-down whiskey. Technology makes everything so convenient these days. Lena's hands were shaking now. The remaining photos scattered across the counter as she tried to gather them up. More women, more hotel rooms, more timestamps from her supposedly transformative week in Rome. "This doesn't mean anything," she said, but the words came out hollow. "These could be from any conference, any time." I reached back into the drawer and produced a manila folder. That's what I thought initially, so I did some research. The folder contained printouts of hotel receipts, all billed to Vossel's pharmaceutical company. Room service charges, champagne orders, spa services for two. Each receipt corresponded to the photo timestamps. 14 conferences in the past year, I continued conversationally. 14 different cities. Your boyfriend has quite the appetite for continuing education. He's not my boyfriend. Really? Because according to his Instagram posts, he's been remarkably consistent in his travel patterns. Always the same luxury hotels, always the same corporate account, always the same extracurricular activities. I spread out a printed map marked with red pins. Miami, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, New York, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix, Dallas, Atlanta, Nashville, New Orleans, and finally, Rome. 14 cities, Lena, 14 conferences, and based on these photos, at least 43 different women. Her face had gone pale beneath the Roman tan. You had me followed. I had him followed. You were just collateral documentation. The truth was more complicated, but I wasn't ready to reveal the full scope of my investigation. My brother Finn, a former police detective turned private investigator, had initially been hired by another woman entirely, a pharmaceutical sales representative from Denver who'd suspected Damon of deliberately exposing her to something he'd failed to mention during their weekend together. That investigation had led to a network of women across multiple cities, all with similar stories about charming Damon Vossel and his promises of career advancement and romantic adventure. Most had discovered they weren't his only conquest. Several had discovered worse things. "This is insane," Lena said, backing away from the counter. "You're acting like some kind of stalker." "I'm acting like a husband who wanted to understand why his wife suddenly needed separate bedrooms, why she started working late 3 nights a week, why she began taking mysterious phone calls in the garden." I stood up, leaving the photos spread between us like evidence in a courtroom. "I'm acting like a man who deserved to know why his wife of 8 years suddenly felt the need to find herself in hotel rooms across Europe. You don't understand what this was about." "Actually, I think I understand perfectly." I pulled out one final document, this one official letterhead from a medical clinic in Boston. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, infectious disease specialist. Damon was treated there 2 weeks before the Rome conference. Lena's eyes widened as she recognized the implications. Herpes simplex virus type 2, prescription antiviral medication. The interesting thing about HSV2 is that it's highly contagious, especially during active outbreaks, and many people don't realize they're carrying it. You're lying. I've already scheduled your appointment with Dr. Hendricks for Friday morning, 10 a.m. I figured you'd want to know sooner rather than later. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of our refrigerator and the distant sound of Mrs. Cotter's television through the walls. Our elderly neighbor was probably watching late-night talk shows, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding next door. Lena stared at the medical report, her newfound confidence crumbling like ancient Roman ruins. "This can't be happening." "Oh, but it gets better." I reached for my laptop, already open to a group chat I'd been monitoring for the past week. "Meet the Damon Vossel Survivors Network. 47 members and growing. They've been very helpful in piecing together his travel schedule and, shall we say, methodology." The chat was active even at this late hour. Women from across the country sharing stories, comparing timelines, offering support and legal advice. Several had posted screenshots of their own medical test results. "Jennifer from Miami was the first to reach out to me," I continued. She saw my inquiry on a pharmaceutical industry forum and recognized the pattern. Turns out Damon has been using the same playbook for years: target successful women at conferences, promise career connections, arrange private dinners, suggest extending the business relationship. Stop. Rebecca from Seattle hired her own private investigator after she tested positive. That's how we connected with Maria from Phoenix, who'd been documenting Damon's social media activity for months. Amazing what you can accomplish when you have a common goal. Lena was crying now, her perfect makeup streaking down her cheeks, but I wasn't finished, not even close. The class action lawsuit is being filed Monday morning. Deliberate transmission of transmitted infections, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, conspiracy. The pharmaceutical company is named as a defendant since Damon used corporate resources to facilitate his activities. You can't be serious. 47 women, Lena. 47 careers damaged, relationships destroyed, health compromised, all because your transformative lover couldn't keep his mouth shut about his conquests or his medical history. I closed the laptop and gathered the photos into a neat stack. The really beautiful part? He documented everything himself: social media posts, corporate expense reports, hotel loyalty program records, even pharmacy receipts. It's like he wanted to get caught. Lena slumped against the kitchen wall, her Italian confidence completely evaporated. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what feeling alive actually costs. I poured myself a fresh whiskey, this time with proper ice. I want you to comprehend that your personal awakening came at the expense of dozens of other women who trusted the same charming pharmaceutical executive. And then what? Then you decide whether you want to be victim number 48 or whether you want to help make sure Damon Vossel never gets the chance to make anyone else feel as alive as you did. The phone rang before she could answer. I glanced at the caller ID and smiled. That'll be Hazel Trevin, I said, letting it ring. Damon's wife. Well, his third wife, technically. She's been very interested in connecting with his recent travel companions. The phone kept ringing. Lena stared at it like it might explode. Aren't you going to answer? She whispered. I thought you might want to take this one. I slid the phone across the counter. Hazel's been calling all evening. She's quite persistent when she wants to discuss her husband's business travel. Lena's hand hovered over the phone. I can't. She already knows about Rome and Miami and Seattle and the other 11 cities. The ringing stopped, then immediately started again. She's been building her own case for months. Divorce attorneys are expensive, but they're very thorough when they smell a big settlement. This is insane. What's insane is that you thought you were special. I answered the phone myself, putting it on speaker. Hazel, good evening. I was just showing Lena your husband's travel photography. Mr. Harren. The voice was crisp, professional, exhausted. Is she there? She's here. Mrs. Mirell-Harren, my name is Hazel Trevin. I believe you know my husband, Damon Vossel. Lena looked like she wanted to disappear into the granite countertop. Yes. How long have you been sleeping with him? The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Direct, unavoidable, suffocating. I don't think I should discuss this. You don't have a choice anymore. Hazel's voice carried the weight of someone who'd been through this before. The lawsuit is moving forward with or without your cooperation, but your testimony could help ensure Damon faces appropriate consequences for his actions. What lawsuit? I pulled up the legal documents on my laptop screen. Hazel's attorney filed preliminary paperwork last week. Intentional transmission of transmitted infections, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The pharmaceutical company is named as a co-defendant since Damon used corporate resources to facilitate his activities. The company knows about this? They will Monday morning, Hazel said through the speaker, along with the medical board, the industry trade publications, and several major pharmaceutical blogs. Your boyfriend's career is about to become very interesting. Lena finally found her voice. He told me you were separated. Hazel laughed, but there was no humor in it. He told Jennifer from Miami the same thing, and Rebecca from Seattle, and the twins from Chicago. We've all compared notes, Mrs. Mirell-Harren. Your husband was quite helpful in connecting us. Miles coordinated this? Your husband reached out through a pharmaceutical industry forum, Hazel continued. He was looking for other women who might have encountered Damon at conferences. Within 48 hours, we had 17 responses. By the end of the week, we had 47 confirmed cases across 14 cities. I opened the group chat on my laptop again. The conversation was active despite the late hour, women from multiple time zones sharing stories, legal advice, and moral support. Jennifer, Miami. Just got my test results back. Positive for HSV-2, adding it to the evidence file. Rebecca, Seattle. My attorney says the corporate angle makes this a federal case. Interstate commerce laws apply. Maria, Phoenix. Found more social media evidence. He posted photos from Rome 3 hours after the conference ended. Champagne and roses in his hotel room. Twins, Chicago. We kept all the text messages, very explicit about his intentions and his health status, or lack thereof. Lena read over my shoulder, her face growing paler with each message. How many people are in this chat? 53 now, I said, scrolling through the member list. Word spreads fast in professional networks, especially when someone's been systematically targeting successful women in the same industry. The phone rang again. Different number this time. That'll be Sophia Lynn, I said, recognizing the caller ID. Your colleague from the biotech conference. She has some interesting things to share about Damon's behavior in Rome. Lena grabbed the phone before I could answer. Sophia? Lena, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all evening. Sophia's voice was breathless, panicked. Have you seen the pharmaceutical industry forum? Someone's posted about Damon Vossel. I'm aware of the situation. It's worse than you think. The forum moderators verified the medical documents. He's been deliberately exposing women to HSV-2 for over a year. There are dozens of victims. I know. Lena, you need to get tested immediately, and you need to distance yourself from him professionally. The company is conducting an internal investigation. I took the phone back. Sophia, this is Miles Harren, Lena's husband. We've been coordinating with the other victims through a private group chat. Would you be interested in joining the discussion? Mr. Harren, Yes, absolutely. Lena, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what he was doing. Actually, I said, I think you did. The line went quiet. You were the one who introduced Lena to Damon at the Boston conference last year. You recommended her for the Rome speaking engagement. You even suggested she extend her stay for networking opportunities. I was trying to help her career. Were you? Or were you trying to help Damon add another successful woman to his collection? That's not... I would never... Sophia, I've been reviewing the pharmaceutical conference attendance records. You've been to 13 of the same conferences as Damon over the past 2 years, always in the same hotels, always with extended stays for networking. Lena was staring at me now, understanding dawning in her eyes. You were one of his victims too, weren't you? I continued. And when you realized what he was doing, instead of stopping him, you decided to help him find new targets. Maybe he promised you career advancement. Maybe he threatened to damage your reputation. Or maybe you just wanted other women to suffer the way you had. You don't understand the pressure in this industry, Sophia whispered. The competition, the politics, the way men like Damon control opportunities. So you fed him information about successful women who might be vulnerable to his approach. You helped him identify targets, arrange meetings, create opportunities. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But you knew they would. I was pacing now, the full scope of the conspiracy becoming clear. You knew about his medical condition. You knew about his pattern of behavior, and you kept introducing him to new victims anyway. Lena sank into one of our kitchen chairs. Sophia, is this true? Lena, you have to understand. Your marriage was already struggling. You were unhappy, unfulfilled. I thought maybe if you had an adventure, something exciting, you might find yourself. You thought if she contracted a transmitted infection from a serial predator, she might find herself? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. I ended the call and turned to Lena. Your friend Sophia has been Damon's recruiting coordinator for over a year. She identifies successful, potentially vulnerable women at conferences and arranges introductions. How do you know all this? Because 3 other women in the group chat mentioned being introduced to Damon by the same biotech marketing coordinator. Always at the same types of conferences, always with the same setup about networking and career opportunities. I showed her the chat messages from earlier in the week. Jennifer Miami. The woman who introduced me to Damon was Asian, early 30s, worked for a Boston biotech firm, very friendly, very helpful with career advice. Rebecca Seattle. Same description. She approached me at the welcome reception, said she knew someone I absolutely had to meet. Maria Phoenix. Sophia something. She had business cards, seemed very connected in the industry. Lena was reading the messages with growing horror. She set me up. She set all of you up. The question is whether she was a willing participant or another victim who got coerced into helping. Does it matter? It matters for the lawsuit, and it matters for your testimony. My testimony? I pulled out another folder, this one containing legal documents with official letterhead. The attorneys want to depose everyone who had contact with Damon through Sophia's introductions. Your testimony could help establish a pattern of conspiracy and deliberate targeting. I can't testify against Sophia, she's my colleague. Sophia testified against you yesterday. Lena's face went white. What? The company's internal investigation. She told HR that you pursued an inappropriate relationship with a conference speaker, that you extended your Rome trip for personal rather than professional reasons, and that you used company resources to facilitate the relationship. She's lying. Is she? You did extend your trip. You did use the company credit card for dinners and entertainment. You did develop a personal relationship with Damon. Because she encouraged me to. Prove it. I opened my laptop to a new document. Email records, text messages, phone calls. If Sophia was recruiting you for Damon, there should be evidence of her encouragement, her suggestions, her coordination. Lena stared at the screen. I deleted most of our messages. Sophia didn't. I showed her screenshots from the group chat. Rebecca from Seattle kept everything. So did Maria from Phoenix. Sophia used almost identical language with all of you. Same suggestions about networking, same recommendations about extending conference stays, same enthusiasm about Damon's industry connections. The evidence was damning. Sophia had been systematically identifying and recruiting women for Damon's predatory behavior, using her position in the industry and her reputation for career mentorship to gain their trust. What happens now? Now you decide whether you want to be a victim or a witness. I closed the laptop and gathered the legal documents. The lawsuit is moving forward regardless, but your testimony could help ensure that both Damon and Sophia face appropriate consequences for their actions. And if I don't testify? Then Sophia's version of events becomes the official record. You pursued an inappropriate relationship, damaged your professional reputation, and potentially exposed the company to liability through your personal choices. Lena was quiet for a long moment, processing the full scope of her situation. When is the deposition? Monday morning, 9 a.m. The attorneys want to interview all the Rome conference attendees first, while the details are still fresh. Will the other women be there? Some of them. Jennifer is flying in from Miami. Rebecca is driving down from Seattle. The twins are coming from Chicago. I paused. Hazel will be there too, with her divorce attorney. This is really happening. This is really happening. I poured myself another whiskey, noting that my hands were steady despite the adrenaline. The question is whether you want to help make sure it never happens to anyone else. The kitchen clock chimed midnight. Lena's transformative business trip had officially become the worst night of her life, and I was just getting started. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp New England clarity that makes everything look sharper, more defined. I'd barely slept, but I felt more awake than I had in months. Lena had spent the night in our guest room, claiming she needed space to think. I suspected she needed space to make phone calls. Dr. Patricia Hendricks's office was located in a medical complex near Boston Harbor, all glass and steel and sterile efficiency. I'd driven Lena there in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts about what the test results might reveal. "You don't have to come in with me," Lena said as we sat in the parking garage. "Actually, I do." I turned off the engine and pocketed the keys. "Dr. Hendricks wants to speak with both of us about the exposure timeline and risk factors." "Risk factors?" "How long you and Damon were together, what activities you engaged in, whether he disclosed his medical history." I opened my door. Standard questions for contact tracing. The waiting room was populated with the kind of people you'd expect at an infectious disease clinic. A few looked nervous, like us. Others seemed resigned, like they'd been through this before. I recognized one woman from the pharmaceutical conference photos, a brunette who'd been pictured with Damon in Chicago. "Mrs. Mirell-Harren?" A nurse appeared with a clipboard. "Dr. Hendricks is ready for you." Dr. Hendricks was younger than I'd expected, probably mid-40s, with the kind of direct manner that comes from delivering difficult news on a regular basis. Her office was decorated with medical degrees and public health awards, but also family photos and a small collection of succulents. "I understand you may have been exposed to HSV-2 through a partner who failed to disclose his status," she said, gesturing for us to sit. "That's correct," I answered when Lena remained silent. "When was your last contact with this individual?" "Tuesday night," Lena whispered. "In Rome." "And when was your first contact?" Lena looked at me helplessly. "I don't remember exactly." "The Boston conference," I said. 13 months ago. They've maintained contact since then, with physical encounters at conferences in Miami, Chicago, and Rome." Dr. Hendricks made notes in her file. "Mr. Harren, have you and your wife been active during this period?" "We've had separate bedrooms for 11 months, I said. Lena claimed she needed space to focus on her career. "I see." More notes. "Mrs. Mirell-Harren, I need to ask about symptoms. Any unusual discharge, burning during urination, painful lesions?" Lena shook her head. "Many people with HSV-2 never show symptoms, especially early on. The virus can remain inactive for months or even years before anything appears." Dr. Hendricks gathered a testing kit. "We'll run one test to look for antibodies and another to check for any active virus." "How long until we know?" "The first test takes about 48 hours. The second can be processed the same day if there are visible signs, though that's less likely if you don't have symptoms." The entire procedure took less than 10 minutes. Lena went through it with quiet resignation, the calm acceptance of someone who had already prepared herself for the worst. "I'll call with results Monday morning," Dr. Hendricks said as we prepared to leave. "In the meantime, I'd recommend abstaining from contact and avoiding stress as much as possible." "Doctor," I said, "how many other patients have you seen in connection with this particular case?" "I can't discuss other patients specifically, but I can tell you that we've seen an unusual cluster of HSV-2 cases among pharmaceutical industry professionals over the past 6 months. The pattern suggests a common source of exposure. Damon Vossel. I can't confirm specific names, but the timeline and exposure locations are consistent with a single individual attending multiple professional conferences." We drove home in silence. Lena stared out the passenger window at the harbor, watching sailboats navigate the morning chop. I found myself thinking about the other women in the group chat, wondering how many of them had sat in similar medical offices, processing similar betrayals. My phone buzzed with a text from Finn. Got more intel on Sophia Lynn. You're going to want to see this. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and called him back. What did you find? Sophia's been in contact with Damon's attorney, Finn said without preamble. Phone records show multiple calls over the past week, including a 2-hour conversation yesterday afternoon. She's coordinating with him. Gets better. I traced her financial records. She received a $10,000 consulting payment from Damon's pharmaceutical company 3 months ago, listed as market research and client development. She was being paid to recruit women. That's how it looks, and there's more. Sophia's been in therapy for HSV-2 treatment for 18 months. Her medical records show she was one of Damon's earliest victims. I glanced at Lena, who was pretending not to listen. So, she was a victim who became an accomplice. Stockholm Syndrome meets professional networking. She probably convinced herself she was helping these women's careers while helping Damon expand his hunting ground. What about the company investigation? Sophia's been feeding them a narrative about Lena pursuing an inappropriate relationship and using company resources for personal travel. She's positioning herself as the whistleblower who tried to prevent unprofessional behavior, even though she's the one who orchestrated the introduction. Exactly. Classic manipulation tactic. Create the problem, then position yourself as the solution. I thanked Finn and ended the call. Lena was looking at me expectantly. Sophia's been coordinating with Damon's legal team, I told her. She's also been paid by his company for client development, $10,000 over the past year. She was paid to recruit women? That's the working theory. She identifies successful, potentially vulnerable women at conferences, arranges introductions, and helps Damon establish contact. In exchange, she gets consulting fees and probably career advancement opportunities. Lena was quiet for a long moment. She knew what would happen to me. She knew exactly what would happen, because it happened to her first. What do you mean? Sophia was one of Damon's victims 18 months ago. Instead of stopping him or reporting him, she decided to help him find new targets. Maybe she thought if she was useful to him, he'd leave her alone. Or maybe she wanted other women to suffer the way she had. That's horrible. That's human nature. I started the car and pulled back onto the highway. People who've been victimized sometimes become perpetrators themselves. It's easier than admitting you were powerless. Is that what you think of me? That I'm a victim? I considered the question carefully. I think you were targeted by professionals who knew exactly how to exploit your vulnerabilities. But I also think you made choices that put other people at risk. What other people? Me, for starters. If you'd tested positive and we'd been intimate, you could have transmitted the virus without knowing it. I paused. And any future partners you might have had if this relationship with Damon had continued. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Neither did Sophia, probably. But intent doesn't matter when you're dealing with infectious diseases and deliberate deception. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from the group chat. Jennifer, Miami. Just spoke with my attorney. Damon's company is trying to settle out of court. They're offering individual settlements in exchange for non-disclosure agreements. Rebecca. Seattle. Same here. They want this to disappear before it becomes public. Hazel, Boston. Don't take the settlement. We're stronger as a group, and the publicity will prevent future victims. I showed Lena the messages. The company's running scared. They know this could destroy their reputation if it becomes public. What does that mean for the lawsuit? It means we have leverage. Companies don't offer settlements unless they know they're going to lose in court. I looked at her directly. That depends on whether you're willing to testify about Sophia's role in recruiting you. Your testimony could be the key to establishing the conspiracy charges. And if I don't testify? Then Sophia's version becomes the official record. Damon and his company escape with minimal consequences, and other women continue to be at risk. Lena stared out the windshield at the traffic ahead of us. When do you need an answer? The deposition is Monday morning, but the attorneys need to know by Sunday night whether you're cooperating or whether you're going to invoke your Fifth Amendment rights. Fifth Amendment? If you refuse to testify, they'll assume you have something to hide. Sophia's already painted you as the aggressor in this situation. Your silence would support her narrative. So I don't really have a choice. You have a choice, but all the options have consequences. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. The question is whether you want to help make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, or whether you want to protect the people who targeted you. Lena sat in the passenger seat for a long moment, staring at our house like she was seeing it for the first time. I need to think about this. You have until Sunday night. She got out of the car and walked toward the front door, her shoulders slumped with the weight of decisions she'd never imagined having to make. I remained in the driver's seat, watching her fumble with her keys, thinking about the test results we'd receive Monday morning and the deposition that would determine whether justice was served or whether Damon Vossel would continue his predatory conference tour. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Harren, this is Dr. Sarah Chen from the CDC. We need to discuss the Vossel case. This may be bigger than you realize. I stared at the message, feeling the first stirrings of something that might have been fear or excitement. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that makes Boston look like a noir film. Lena had spent the weekend in what she called preparation mode, which mostly involved pacing around our house and making hushed phone calls to her attorney. Dr. Hendricks had called at 8 a.m. sharp with the test results. Positive for HSV-2 antibodies, negative for active virus. Lena had contracted the infection but wasn't currently symptomatic. The timeline suggested exposure during the Miami conference 13 months ago, which meant she'd been carrying the virus through multiple encounters with Damon without knowing it. At least now we know, she'd said, after hanging up the phone. Do we? I'd replied. Because knowing you're infected and knowing what you're going to do about it are two different things. The law offices of Brennan, Walsh & Associates occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, all mahogany and leather, and the kind of understated wealth that comes from winning class action suits. The conference room where the depositions were being held could have seated 20 people, but today it hosted only 8. 2 attorneys, a court reporter, Lena myself, Jennifer from Miami, Rebecca from Seattle, and Sophia Lynn. Sophia looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her confidence replaced by the nervous energy of someone who knew they were in serious trouble. Mrs. Mirell-Harren, began Attorney Walsh, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd heard every lie ever told. Please state your relationship to the defendant, Damon Vossel. We met at a pharmaceutical conference in Boston 14 months ago. We maintained a professional relationship that became personal over time. Can you describe the nature of this personal relationship? Lena glanced at Sophia, who was studiously avoiding eye contact. We had intimate encounters at conferences in Miami, Chicago, and Rome. Did Mr. Vossel disclose his HSV-2 status before these encounters? No. Did he ever mention having any transmitted infections? No. He specifically told me he'd been tested and was clean. Attorney Walsh made notes. How were you introduced to Mr. Vossel? Through Sophia Lynn, a colleague in the biotech industry. Ms. Lynn, you're present today under subpoena. Do you acknowledge introducing Mrs. Mirell-Harren to Mr. Vossel? Sophia's voice was barely audible. Yes. Can you describe the circumstances of this introduction? It was at the Boston Pharmaceutical Innovation Conference. Lena mentioned she was interested in expanding her network in pharmaceutical sales. I thought Damon might be a useful contact. Had you met Mr. Vossel before this conference? Sophia hesitated. Yes. Can you describe your prior relationship with him? We had encountered each other at previous conferences. Ms. Lin, I'm going to show you medical records indicating you were treated for HSV-2 beginning 18 months ago. Are these records accurate? Sophia's face crumpled. Yes. Did you contract HSV-2 from Mr. Vossel? Yes. So when you introduced Mrs. Mirell-Harren to Mr. Vossel, you knew he was carrying a transmitted infection. I didn't know for certain. But you suspected. Yes. The room fell silent except for the scratching of the court reporter's fingers on her stenographic machine. Jennifer from Miami was staring at Sophia with undisguised disgust. Rebecca from Seattle looked like she wanted to reach across the table and strangle her. Ms. Lin, I'm going to show you financial records indicating you received payments totaling $10,000 from Vossel Pharmaceutical Consulting over the past year. Can you explain these payments? Consulting fees. What type of consulting? Market research? Client development? Did this client development involve introducing Mr. Vossel to women at pharmaceutical conferences? Sophia's attorney, a nervous-looking man in his 30s, leaned forward. My client invokes her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Ms. Lin, I'm going to read you a text message sent from your phone to Mr. Vossel on March 10th, 5 days before the Rome conference. Attorney Walsh pulled out a printed document. Lena confirmed for Rome, extending stay through weekend, staying at Excelsior as discussed. She's perfect for your networking approach. The text message hung in the air like an indictment. Sophia had explicitly coordinated Lena's introduction to Damon, arranged her extended stay, and recommended her as a target for his networking approach. Ms. Lin, do you maintain this was legitimate business consulting? Sophia's attorney whispered something in her ear. She shook her head. Ms. Lin, I'm going to show you similar text messages regarding Jennifer Martinez, Rebecca Thompson, and 12 other women who were subsequently exposed to HSV-2 through encounters with Mr. Vossel. Do you maintain these were coincidental professional introductions? I want to make a statement, Sophia said suddenly, ignoring her attorney's frantic gestures. Sophia, don't, her lawyer hissed. I can't do this anymore. Sophia looked directly at Lena for the first time since the deposition began. Lena, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ms. Lin, you're not required to make any statements. Yes, I am. Sophia's voice grew stronger. Damon approached me at the Denver conference 18 months ago. He was charming, professional, interested in my career. We spent the weekend together, and I thought it was the beginning of something meaningful. She paused, gathering herself. 2 weeks later, I developed symptoms. When I confronted him, he admitted he'd known about his condition, but said he thought I should have asked about his medical history. He said it was my responsibility to protect myself. What happened next? I was devastated, but Damon convinced me that going public would destroy both our careers. He said the pharmaceutical industry was small and gossip traveled fast. He offered me consulting work, said he could help advance my career if I helped him meet other professionals at conferences. So, you began recruiting women for him. He called it networking. He said he was looking for intelligent, successful women who might be interested in career advancement opportunities. I convinced myself I was helping their careers. Even though you knew what would likely happen to them. Sophia's voice broke. I told myself they were adults who could make their own decisions. I told myself Damon might have learned to be more careful, more honest. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true. How many women did you introduce to Mr. Vossel? 17 over the past year. The number hit the room like a physical blow. 17 women deliberately targeted and exposed to a transmitted infection by someone they trusted as a professional colleague. Ms. Lin, why are you admitting this now? Because I saw the group chat. I saw how many women were hurt, how many lives were damaged. I saw Lena's face when she realized what had happened to her. Sophia was crying now. I became the kind of person I'd always despised. I became a predator. Attorney Walsh let the statement settle before continuing. Mrs. Mirell-Harren, how do you respond to Ms. Lin's admission? Lena was quiet for a long moment. I trusted her. She was my mentor, my friend. I thought she was helping my career. Did you have any indication that Ms. Lin might have ulterior motives for introducing you to Mr. Vossel? No, she seemed genuinely enthusiastic about the networking opportunity. She encouraged me to extend my conference stays, to be open to new professional relationships. Did she ever mention her own relationship with Mr. Vossel? Never. If I'd known she'd been involved with him, I would have been much more cautious. And if you'd known about his medical condition? I would never have had any contact with him. Attorney Walsh turned to Jennifer and Rebecca. Ms. Martinez, Ms. Thompson, were your experiences similar? Both women nodded. Jennifer spoke first. Sophia approached me at the Miami conference welcome reception. She said she knew someone I absolutely had to meet, someone who could open doors in pharmaceutical sales. She arranged the introduction, suggested we have dinner, even recommended extending my stay for additional networking. Rebecca's story was nearly identical, down to Sophia's specific language about networking and career advancement. It appears Ms. Lin used a consistent approach to identify and recruit targets for Mr. Vossel, Attorney Walsh concluded. The question now is whether this constitutes criminal conspiracy or simply civil liability. Sophia's attorney had given up trying to control his client. She was answering every question, providing details about Damon's methods, his payments to her, his explicit instructions about the types of women to target. He preferred successful women who seemed unfulfilled in their personal lives, she explained. Women who were ambitious, but maybe struggling in their marriages or relationships. He said they were more open to adventure, more likely to extend conference stays for networking. How did he identify these women? Social media, mostly. He'd research conference attendees, look at their LinkedIn profiles, their Instagram posts, their relationship status. Then he'd ask me to approach the ones who seemed like good targets. And you complied with these requests? Yes, he paid me well, and he promised to help advance my career. He had connections throughout the industry. Did he deliver on these promises? Some of them. I got consulting contracts, speaking opportunities, introductions to senior executives. But the price was recruiting other women for him. Did you ever consider reporting his behavior? Every day. But I was afraid of retaliation, afraid of damaging my career, afraid of admitting what I'd become. Sophia looked around the room at the women she'd helped victimize. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I want to help make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Attorney Walsh closed her notepad. Ms. Lin, are you prepared to testify against Mr. Vossel in criminal proceedings? Yes. Even if it means admitting to conspiracy charges yourself? Yes. I'll accept whatever consequences come from my actions, but I want him stopped. The deposition concluded at 3 p.m. Sophia left immediately, escorted by her attorney and probably heading directly to the district attorney's office to formalize her cooperation agreement. Jennifer and Rebecca caught flights back to their respective cities, armed with ammunition for their own legal proceedings. Lena and I walked to our car in silence. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained overcast, matching the mood of everyone who'd been in that conference room. What happens now? She asked as we sat in the parking garage. Now the criminal investigation begins. Sophia's testimony provides evidence of conspiracy, interstate commerce violations, and deliberate transmission of infectious diseases. Damon's looking at federal charges. And Sophia? Probably a plea agreement. Cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. She'll lose her career, but she might avoid prison time. Do you think she was telling the truth about being manipulated by Damon? I considered the question. I think she was initially a victim who became a perpetrator. Whether that makes her more or less culpable is for a jury to decide. And me? You were a victim, Lena. A targeted, deliberately recruited victim. But you were also married to me while you were having affairs with Damon. Those are separate issues. She was quiet for a moment. Are you going to divorce me? I filed papers last week. You'll be served tomorrow morning. Miles. This isn't about revenge anymore, Lena. This is about the fact that our marriage ended the moment you decided to trust Sophia's career advice over your wedding vows. I started the car and pulled out of the parking garage, heading home to a house that would soon be occupied by only one of us. The legal proceedings would continue for months, but the personal reckoning was already complete. Lena had found herself in Rome, just as she'd claimed. Unfortunately, what she'd found was someone willing to destroy her life for the price of a consulting fee and a weekend of adventure. The question now was whether she could find a way to live with the consequences.